As I would head out the door as a teenager, my mother would always say to me, "Act as nice as you look." She would also say, "Pretty is as pretty does." And while the reminder was about behavior, the message was always attached to physical appearance. Welcome to The View from Abroad. I'm Teresa Norton, and this is a podcast where today we're going to be unpacking a piece I wrote 30 years ago on why throughout the ages we have put such a high price tag on beauty when in actual fact, it really, literally is only skin deep. This is the newspaper column chosen by today's guest, Eliana Bogdanova, founder of Her Money Game, a community coaching platform that helps women business owners to stop leaving money on the table and start making more confident financial decisions. And we're going to hear more about that during the break. But right now we begin, as we always do, by taking a listen to that newspaper column that Eliana chose. It was written 3 decades ago. The fairest of them all. I don't know, maybe I'm nuts, but there's a word that's been rattling around in my head like a pinball all week. And every time I manage to get rid of it, I get a free ball and it pops up again. I wouldn't mind it so much, but this is not a pretty word. It's ugly. I mean, it is ugly. ugly. That's the word. It all started with Robert De Niro, whom I personally find dishy in the extreme. Last week, however, in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the man was ugly. He plays Frankenstein's monster, and such a monster. We're talking not shoebox head and neck bolts Halloween sort of campy ugly. We're talking emergency room ugly. Dr. Frankenstein could have done with a few more home economics classes. It's like he appliqued the monster's eye to his face. De Niro looks like a crazy quilt. It's very effective. Monstrous and ugly. As you know, in Mary Shelley's original story of the obsessed young doctor who believes he can raise people, albeit in bits and pieces, from the dead, the monster he creates is not evil, just misunderstood and ugly. The reason he goes on a rampage of vengeance is because he's abandoned by his creator, and the village folks do not want to know about a 6'6" eyesore. Ugly to the bone is spine-tinglingly scary. Put a sack on it, guy. You're scaring me. You look like a damn elephant stomped on your head, man. Well, that's a different movie, but the same story. True story. Man is born terribly disfigured, and Joe Public finds him repulsive and fascinating. Unfortunately, only in storybooks and movies do we find him fascinating because he's nasty-looking but has a heart of gold. In real life, we never get that far. I was sitting in a studio talking with some people I work with about prejudice. We discussed being a minority in the East, being a minority in the West, being a woman working in a man's world, being a man in the 90s. We basically covered all the stuff that makes it tough to get what you need to get done in a world where light travels faster than sound and people make up their minds about you before you even open your mouth. I'm only prejudiced about one kind of people, admitted one woman. Ugly people. An ugly face is like a malady, I thought to myself. I don't mean physically ugly. I mean nasty, from the inside. It shows, you know, the Chinese believe your face cannot betray your soul. Even if you're beautiful, a bad heart will show through your eyes, she said. Well, that's some consolation, I guess, but I wonder how often that rule works in reverse. How often do we blind ourselves to an ugly mug to let a good heart shine through? Oh, of course, if it's somebody you know and love, physical appearance means nothing. I mean, Uncle Charlie lost his eye in the war, spits when he talks and suffers from terminal flatulence, but he's your uncle, and, well, you know, he's your uncle. You gotta love Uncle Charlie, that crazy old one-eyed stinker. Everybody loves Uncle Charlie, right? Wrong. The average person does not want to sit next to a drooling, farting old man with an eye patch. But it's Uncle Charlie. Yeah, well, he's your uncle. You sit next to him. We haven't evolved much when it comes to appearances, whether it's a bunch of German peasants running Frankenstein's monster out of town, or the beautiful people in the office avoiding the guy with the bad toupee and the boils on the back of his neck. Artifice and edifice separate the winners from the losers. And in fact, it isn't whether you win or lose, it's how you look when you're doing it. We've been watching Disney's Beauty and the Beast at our house. You know how it is with 4-year-olds. If it's worth watching 743 times. The beauty had to be held captive before she could see beyond the face of the beast. But once she gets inside his head, she's smitten. Good for her. Each time I watch that scene, I'm reminded of a line from an old Mae West movie. He ain't no oil paintin', but he's a fascinating monster. Welcome to The View from Abroad, Eliana. You are a numbers gal, a former CFO for an international software company. You were an auditor for one of the big 4 global professional services and accounting networks, and you were a Forbes CFO of the Year. I have to ask you, my dear, what drew you to this column?
Hello, Teresa. Thank you for having me, first of all. I'm super glad to be part of your podcast and to discuss this beautiful article, because I think even it was written more than 3 decades ago, it is super relevant nowadays as well. And I think this topic is something that lasts and also develops in time, but for me, it's a big topic, and that's why I chose it, and I want to dig deeper in it with you.
Well, you know, we always try and look back, and I'm thinking about today's emphasis on inclusivity. You know, there's more of a broader look in the workforce and in advertising, more different types of ability and attractiveness. It's more open, but are we able to see beauty based more on what people have achieved rather than how they look achieving it? Do you think that that's changed?
I do believe so. I think there is still some way ahead of us to keep evolving. For me, the inclusivity is more about being understood. So if you feel that, people around you and the society is understanding who you are despite of how you look like or despite where you're coming from, if you feel understood and accepted, that's inclusivity for me. If you're not feeling that, and if you're feeling like society is just not understanding you, you get into this defensive mindset. I think this is where people kind of close themselves and they start to shrink themselves.
Just listening to what you're saying, I'm thinking of something that I witnessed on the metro just this last week, which would be the underground or the subway, depending on where you're listening from. And there was a homeless person who got on who had been living rough for a while and was really very physically dirty and unattractive. And the smell was very strong. And you could see people kind of leaning back. And there was this one woman who had an empty seat across from her. And this person sat down, and her first thing was to look and sort of give a nice little smile. And I thought, gosh. And you know what? I mean, the smell was overwhelming. It was a very hot day in Lisbon. And the combination of the heat and being in a closed area, I thought to myself, if it were me, not out of a sense of disgust, but in a sense of overwhelm, I would have had to get up and move away. And she sat there opposite this person the whole time. And I thought, you know, this is someone who is somehow overcoming and seeing beyond and getting to what I was talking about in that column. And in fact, in the world we live in today, the most shocking thing that we see on a daily basis, and depending on where you're living right now, you may see it more often or less often than other people, are people who are destitute and homeless and living in unbelievably rough conditions. And how do we get beyond the human reaction, which probably comes from something to do with not wanting to get sick. You know, it's probably some primal thing that causes us to want to distance ourselves from people that look like they could be infectious. But I think the fact of the matter is there are people, and we've seen them, like on, have you ever seen on any of the social media posts, like this guy that goes, I think he's in Southeast Asia, and he goes and he finds homeless people and
Yeah.
he does a makeover. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen this. These are amazing videos, and I think they're setting a great example of how we can approach people like that. Because, when I see a homeless person or a person that you're kind of describing, I'm asking myself, what was the life of this person in order for them to get where they are? Maybe something
Hmm.
terrible happened, or it's just the wrong circumstances. It makes me feel more grateful for what I have and where I am at the moment. And I think we just need to kind of overcome this, as you're saying, like the primal instinct that you have to get away from it, from this person, and to be a little curious and to be a little more, I don't know, human, and try to be more open-minded and see what happens and who is that person, and maybe just give a smile. Maybe that's enough.
Yeah,
um yeah, I
yeah.
think that's a
Maybe
beautiful
that's
example
enough.
that you gave. Yeah, sometimes that's the first step.
Yeah.
I'm a step by step girl, meaning you don't need to
Mm.
have it all figured out. You just need to make the first step, and then the second, and then the third, and then it will be more easy. It will be easier for you every time.
This is how we develop better habits in all parts of our lives. One of the toughest things I think as humans we have to face is that there's one thing that is the physical habit of stopping biting your nails. It's another thing that's stopping the mental habit of thinking. You know, you're where your mind goes first. And you can't always stop where it goes to first, but you could maybe put a leash on it and pull it back a little bit before it starts taking a long journey down that road and say, listen, why is this my first reaction? And what would be an alternative to this? Okay, here's another question. What about in terms of romance? Okay. Nobody puts a picture of how they look when they wake up in the morning on their dating app profile,
Maybe
right?
that's a great way to differentiate from all the photos and people out there in these apps.
I think that is an excellent idea. Maybe that could be a new app, like, here's what I look like when I wake up. Still interested?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just going to say, do you think that there's a downside to being too beautiful? I mean, I can remember my mother would see like incredibly handsome men, and she'd go, all he has to do is breathe in and out. You know, like as if no brain required. And maybe that was her opposite view of the dumb blonde, you know, because you got
Mhm.
all that all the time, you know, that's ditzy female. So do you think that there's a downside to being too beautiful, that you get judged on that as well?
Definitely. I think the same way we have prejudice around ugliness and ugly people, we have the same with beautiful girls, blonde girls, or so we develop this prejudice not only with ugliness but also with beautiful people. And that's why I think it's normal for us as humans, our initial reaction to be based on the physical appearance, but we just need to take that on leash, as you're saying, and step back and see, okay, maybe there is something more, uh and there is definitely something more behind that. I would say for beautiful ladies, it's much more likely for them to be noticed in society. So maybe they're not spending so much time developing other skills, rather than if you are, let's say, ugly and you know that you cannot attract with physical appearance, you want to attract with some other qualities that you can develop. So maybe it's sometimes,
Mm.
maybe this is a prejudice of mine that beautiful people are not that, smart or capable as ugly people. So see, it's kind of, it's working both ways.
It does. It really does. And I'm thinking we often see not what we would consider stunningly handsome men, older men. I'm thinking of a president, for example, who has an extraordinarily beautiful younger wife. And there, right? So that happens. But then there's also the president. I'm thinking of another president who has an older wife. But you know what the similarity is? Both of these wives are stunningly beautiful. But the men, kind of average. And I wonder if, like, is it because men are judged more on their accomplishments and women are judged more superficially? What do you think?
Hmm. Could be the case. When you were talking about men and how they look, I think I had a really recent example of me meeting two men. One of them was attractive, the other one not that much. And I spent 30 minutes talking with both. And at the end, I was more attracted to the unattracted guy because of the conversation that we were having and the similar topics that we were having. And that's what I was telling you earlier about, that we just need to be more open minded and kind of give it some time and give it the space for people to show what their true insights are to you. And in terms of what you're asking about, how women and how men are judged, definitely there is some difference, historical difference even, because, men, they need to have like this decent job. They need to be the provider for this family. They need to earn money. So a woman is always judging the men based on whether they can create a safe environment for the family and for the woman, and whether they can, bring food to the table, and whether the woman feels safe with the man. And it's not much about, the physical appearance. And I think a man is attracted to a woman for kind of completely different reasons. And maybe sometimes there is a difference in this, how they perceive beauty and how they choose their lives and partners in life.
Yeah, I wonder if that is, I mean, what you began that sentence by saying historically,
Mm,
it has historically been true, right? But the
yeah.
world has changed so much. Not hardly any families anymore can get away with one bread earner. It's, now we've both got to be bringing in the bacon. So it's that maybe that is helping to change that a little bit. I love what you're saying about the antidote to writing people off because of the way that they appear is putting the space and the time and investing enough of a window to get to know what's inside so that you can get over what's outside. I love that. Hey, listen, let's take a break. I want to talk about her money game. And we're back. You have been involved in so many important financial decisions throughout your career. You were one of Forbes' top CFOs. You've worked with the big four financial services and accountancy firms, and now you've got this platform to help women. Tell me, why did you make that move from corporate to what is really kind of giving back to the female community?
Yeah, that's a wonderful story. And I just love telling it because I think it's really, um, you can see for sure who am I and how I perceive things from just hearing that story. Because as you said, I have a lot of financial experience in my life. Uh, and then when I come to, it always goes back to me making the first step towards my happy life and towards my dream life, meaning finding my happy place in Lisbon. And once I start to feel happy and you feel content in your body and in your life and in your mind, then you think about, okay, how can I help other people? How can I be good with other people? How can I make the world a better place? And then I'm sure you know, but Lisbon is a place that there is a great entrepreneur spirit. A lot of people are building their businesses. And when I came in Lisbon, I started to go to a lot of events and meeting a lot of communities and meeting a lot of people, not people only, but women specifically, building businesses. And I keep saying what I'm doing. I'm a finance director. I do finance. And they keep nodding and they keep saying, oh, that's great, but I don't understand finance, or money are not my thing, or, oh, oh no, I don't know what you're talking about.
Mm.
So then I started to think that maybe it would be really beneficial for these women to start embracing finance and money more in their businesses, and it would make
Mm.
their businesses more successful. And this will be my way of making the world a better place if they succeed in their ideas. Because I do believe that women in business, their business ideas are always inspired by a problem that they want to solve. So if I help them
Mm.
solve that problem easier and in a bigger way, that's my mission come true. And I just love this community that I created.
I just have to say, as a woman who, well, I've got the podcast now and I do some other creative projects. But when I ran my own business, my son is running it now. You know, very often these creative entrepreneurs, and I'm not even talking about being in the creative industry, I just mean people who are entrepreneurs, women who are entrepreneurs, very often their talents lie in that specific area of what they're building, but not always in the financial side of things. And it's such a service that you're providing.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. It's definitely a topic that nobody teaches you in school. If you haven't studied that in university, it's also not covered in university. And as you're saying, if you have a business, you have so many hats that you need to wear: a marketing hat, a sales hat, the running the business itself, finance, operations, all of these things. And most of the cases, because it's so women are not educated enough on the topic, and they don't even know where to start, and they are kind of but we're tapping here a lot on, the money mindset and the limiting beliefs, but they're kind of ashamed to even ask the questions. um
Yeah.
and when you're in a space like that, you you don't know what your first step need to be. And I often got the question, I don't know what I need to know.
Mm.
So I absolutely love what we are building in the community, and I think it's definitely transformative for women in business. And I do hope it's going to change a lot of businesses and lives, and will make the world a better place.
Oh, this is great. Let me just give a plug to your website. It's www.hermoneygame.com. www.hermoneygame.com. Check it out. It's a wonderful, wonderful project. Thank you, Eliana. Okay, we are back, and listen, it is now my favorite part of the program. What in that there's something in that column that must have stimulated a story that you want to share. Please share it with us now.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. As I told you, there were a lot of things that clicked with me when I was reading this column. And I would say it's not it's the story of my life in a way, because I spent, I think, the first 35 or even more years of my life measuring myself against a beauty standard that I could never meet. And it's somehow, when you're it's also related to where you are brought up, what are your parents, what is the country that you're living, what are the standards there. But it's kind of, for me, it was I grow up with this feeling of minimizing myself in not in every part of my life, but in a lot of parts of my life. And I had this belief that my body is not enough. And I was trying to catch up in different areas of my life so that I can be enough everywhere else, especially in, in professional career. So I developed this amazing professional career, which I'm super grateful for. And now I'm using it for the right reasons. um, but it came from this desire inside of me to catch up and prove myself enough. um,
Mm.
and I was thinking a lot lately, but not only, about who says what is beauty, same as who says what is art, and whether a piece of art is meaningful enough or should be worth millions of dollars or could be 10 euro. And I think it's a lot about emotions, and are there any emotions rising up inside of you when you're watching this art? And I think it's the same with people and the beauty inside of the people. Um, and it's and also this story that I'm telling you now, it's not something that clicked at some point, and I woke myself. I woke in the morning, and I'm like, okay, now I'm confident, and I love my body. And I think it's a step by step approach, and it's the little things that you're doing in life, and the little lessons that you're having. That at some point you really
Well,
understand
let's
that.
just, I want to stop you for 1 second. When you say like the little steps, talk to me about, can you give me some examples of like those little moments that started to break away that negative relationship with your body and with how you look?
I think for me, it's first the steps of loving your body, respecting your body, taking care of your body. And it always starts with these fundamental things like the food you eat, and it's nourishing your body, and your body is holding you through your whole life. So you need to be very thankful when you wake up in the morning and you have the energy to do whatever you need to do for the day, or even a good night's sleep, to give yourself the permission to go to bed every day at, I don't know, 10 p.m. and have a nourishing sleep for your body. um, I'm a very social person, and I love to, socialize, and I'm a very extroverted person, but I also like my me time.
This is a
Absolutely.
wonderful point, and it's so true. And one of the first things that we forget when we're busy and stressed and taking care of the world is to take care of ourselves, right? And linking this back to how we appraise our value in terms of our physical appearance and our physical beauty, to fall in love with ourselves. I mean, these
Hmm.
bodies have taken us as far as we've gotten today. And in fact, I'm overweight right now. And you know what I say? As long as it's not hurting my health, I don't give a stuff. And I've got a pic. Look at the image behind
Yeah,
me. Look at that.
yeah, absolutely.
Beauty is a mindset.
Absolutely. 100% agree. Yeah, beauty is a mindset, and beauty is inside and also outside. And if you feel yourself beautiful from the outside, people definitely can see that as well. I'm 100% sure about that.
I'm just going to wrap this up with this last little thought here that what we've been talking about and what I loved about what you said was to just give yourself the space when you
Mhm.
interact with somebody who doesn't attract you for whatever reason, to give the space to get to know that person and appreciate what qualities they do have. By the same token, do that for yourself. Give yourself a little space in front of that mirror to say,
Yeah,
what's working here? I've got 10 little toes that I can wiggle and they're doing just fine. Maybe I'll paint them a pretty color today.
yeah. Be curious about you and your body. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Eliana, for being with us on The View from Abroad. If you'd like to learn more about her money game, here's the website to go to: www.hermoneygame.com. And you can follow Eliana on Instagram. She's her.moneygame. Hey, listen, if you're enjoying the View from Abroad podcast, do me a solid, please, before you sign out of whatever platform you're listening or watching us on. Take just 30 seconds to subscribe, follow, comment, or leave a review on Google. And look, breathe all the time, come up slowly, and remember, whatever ugly situation you're dealing with right now, tomorrow is a new day. And hey, what if it's good?